Our last presenter today is Geska Helena Brecevic.
Yes.
Brecevic, excuse me. And she is one half of the Stockholm-based artistic duo Performing Pictures, along with Robert Brecevic.
Yes.
Performing Pictures work in the area of moving images and new technologies for media delivery. Today, Geska is here to demonstrate their work. In their artistic practice, they explore and develop responsive film art from a number of formative limitations in time and space. Their ambition is to tell simple and straightforward tales that rely on silent action, a dramatic shift in posture, a certain gesture, and a relation between one or several characters. So please join with me in welcoming Geska.
So I hope you still have a little bit of energy left. I know you all want coffee, and I'll try not to be too long. I'll start off with showing you one of our installations. This is an installation that we normally show on as a big projection or on a big kind of life-size plasma screen. And the installation is called Men That Fall. And I'll tell you a bit about the background later on. But it basically works like this. You see the man on the screen, and if you're kind of a curious person, you might get a little bit closer to him. And I'm going to simulate it here with just moving the mouse. And what happens is that he will notice that you are there, approaching him, so he will look at you. And you can stand there, and you just meet each other for a while, and if you go away, he will just go back to his kind of resting loop. But if you're curious and come close, he will look at you. And if you get even closer, or maybe too close, oops, sorry, we'll take the next one. This is what will happen. And it's as simple as that. So Men That Fall is a very self-explanatory title. Here's another one. And as you can imagine, it's not the same thing to see this on a computer screen as it is to actually meet the man in real life. Okay. Okay. So this is an installation view from the very first time we show Men That Fall. This is in a huge shopping mall in Karlstad. It's kind of this, for old Swedes, kind of Galne Gunnar. This is really the place. There's about 2 million people passing by each year, a lot of people from Norway coming to do their shopping. It's a crazy place. And it's absolutely not a place that's used for showing art. But we were invited as part of an art project to use this space. And it was really hard, actually, just to find a space to put up an installation. Because, shopping malls, they're just designed for you to pass by, go into the shop and buy something, not to sit on a bench or, have a nice time. So, as you can see from the little sign here, we're actually very close to a fire exit. We found a little place. And it was really appreciated. It was really fun. There was no really signs or information that this was a piece of art. It was just up there for people to experience. And at one point when we came back to just check that everything was working, I saw a really nice set view with a couple of teenage girls that were really giggling and running towards the screen and making man after man fall. And a little bit further on, there was a group of elderly men watching young women making men fall. So there was this kind of very nice meta play. The technical setup is very, very simple. We try to use really simple interfaces and not put the technology in front of the image. So it's just a range distance sensor that measures 2 different distances from the screen, microcontroller, and the video on a computer, and the software to play it out. What we've been working with is basically to find another way for video playout that is more suitable for public spaces of different kinds. If you show an art video in a gallery, you always have this problem of a loop of 7 minutes, and you walk in the middle of things, and you don't know, shall I start to watch now, or shall I wait until it starts all over again? And we tried to find a way to show images in a public space that really takes the viewer into account, that kind of starts and stops whenever you are there. So this has also been working with kind of a new taxonomy for video playout, where you start with you have a mix of loop and transit clips. So in The Men That Fall, you have this idle loop when he stands look down, and if you trigger the screen, you have a transit clip, which is look up, which is followed by a second loop, which is the look loop, and from there you can either go down to a transit clip where he goes back to look down and you go to the idle loop again, or you go even closer, you go to the next transit clip, which is the fall, which is followed by an idle loop. So that's kind of a schematic of how it looks. This installation was the start of a 3-year research project, which we conducted together with a professor called Karin Becker, who then worked at Linköping's University. She's now a professor at Journalism, Media and Communication at Stockholm University. And the project was called Cinesense. And it was a 3-year study of how you can employ interactive video works in different kind of public spaces and how people perceive the works differently depending on the kind of public space. It was also the start for another project together with a professor from the School of Architecture in Norway called Andrew Morrison, which was called Disquiet in the Plasma, which deals with this idea of the character and the plasma and the embodiment, and also a bit about the performative aspects of the work. So, Men That Fall was quite quickly followed by other characters. This is an installation view from an art hall in Avesta called Verket, which is in an old blast furnace. So it's kind of an industrial environment where you're not really allowed to mount anything on the walls. So we built our installations into this kind of, standalone boxes. And we were commissioned to do yet another video installation that could work together with Men That Fall. And it was quite obvious for us that it had to be an installation working with women, of course. And whereas it was quite easy to work with the installation of The Falling Men, which was actually inspired by Susan Faludi's book Stift, which is not, she has written a lot of books of feminism, but this is a book about the man, and especially kind of the white, middle-aged, heterosexual man who's the family provider and knows one job very well and is not really prepared for this kind of multitasking, multidisciplinary reality, and how the image of manhood kind of falls. And the book has the title Stift, which has kind of a double meaning, both being like very physically stiff, like the man holding his posture when he falls, but also stiffed in like being tricked or being had, So when we decided to work with the women, so it takes some time to exit from PowerPoint here. We had done a lot of the exhibitions in public spaces and kind of, seen the saturation of images of smiling women who are very inviting and always trying to sell something or are very invited. So we wanted to create an image of a woman who had more integrity and, which would very obviously stand out in a public environment with a lot of this kind of images of women in commercials. So it was the woman who stands with her back facing you. And the installation works basically in the same way as Men That Falls. So when you come close to the woman, she kind of reacts and gets a bit annoyed, she doesn't like you to get too close. And the same thing here, if you just go back. that's when she will turn around and face you. And this became a very frustrating experience for a lot of people because they had experienced men that fall, which like very directly something happens, and they try to get close to the woman, and she just has this little shrug of discomfort and nothing happens. And people stand there for a really long time, and then like, there's something wrong, the installation doesn't work, or there's a failure of technology, or they get really irritated because nothing happens, And then they walk away, and they put her back towards her. And that's actually when she turns around. And then when they look the next time, she has already turned. And most of the people kind of missed the thing happening, which kind of becomes a backward. Okay, we'll do one more. So I'm just going to close that down. So the boxes we did for the installation in Avesta are really easily portable. There's just a lid that you put in front of the plasma screen, and they are plug and play. So there's just one socket you have to put into the wall, and it will just automatically start. So this enabled us to really travel around with the boxes and do really quick installations for just a couple of hours in different public spaces. And Karin and her international master students, they followed us to several places during a period over 3 years and just, took notice of how people reacted or not reacted. And here's some example from the Central Station in Stockholm. I really like this image of these very fierce ladies with their bags, they're really on their way, and none of them notice that there are men falling like this, But the people sitting over here on the cafe kind of sees this scene being played out, whereas they are totally unaware of what's happening. Here's an image from the City Library in Stockholm, which is kind of a more calm place. People have more time, whereas the Central Station is really just a transit place for people to pass by. This is from a shopping mall in Riga, in Latvia, where we had a little boy who got really, really fascinated with the turning women and spent about half an hour there. And it's always the same in public spaces, no matter where they are. It's always the kids who really start to interact first, and then the grown-ups kind of follow. And what we also notice with people is that they really kind of have personal relationships to the different kind of characters. So, for example, when the fireman comes up, someone says, "Oh, it's the fireman, it's your turn to approach the screen." So people's kind of personal stories also get woven into the relationship with the on-screen characters. Here's another view from just the street in Stockholm. We worked a lot with just shopping windows or abandoned shops, and just used the windows for a couple of days or a month to put up the installations and just have people passing by. It's very grateful to do in Sweden, which has a long and dark winter, which works well with media screens. This is from the shopping mall Pup in Stockholm, also a very frenzy place. From Stockholm Cultural Festival in 2009, we've also used these installations outdoors. And we kind of been adding men that fall and women that turn, and we've also added other parts to what we started to call the family of performing pictures. So we have the men, we have the women, we have kids on the slide, we have old that fold, and just a growing family, fathers and sons as well, which I will show you later on. And today there's about 16 men in the Men That Fall. About 2008, I think it was, we were asked to do something for an exhibition about public space on Konsthall C in Hökarängen outside of Stockholm. And we felt that it was really strange to do something in a kind of art space about art in public spaces. So we thought we'd rather do something in the public space in Hökarängen. So we decided to add some more characters. There were 3 more men that fall and 3 more women that turn. And we worked with both sites and people from the local area of Hökarängen. So that was the first time we were kind of, started to work more site-specific also with the content of the screens, not only the placement. So that's where we shot the firemen. And it was a really cold day, and afterwards we were invited to come and have coffee with the firemen. And actually the entire background story of why we started to work with men that fall got a quite nice framing and kind of, entered back into reality. The same day, the politicians had decided to cut the fire brigade with 50%. So what you call like the head of the fire brigade kind of told us that he had to fire half of the men working there, which was really what this entire depiction about the men that fall, was all about. Yeah, and here's the images installed, also in kind of an abandoned space. It used to be the postal office, so people kind of passed by on their way to go to the only tube station for commuting to town. I would just give one more example of very much more kind of guerrilla installations, very quick, very dirty, just straight on a street, among all of the garbage. This is on a street in Brussels. So we work with everything from galleries to kind of, defined public spaces until very undefined public spaces. This is another member in the family. This is called Offspring Taking Off. It was actually here in Karlskrona a couple of weeks ago as part of a traveling exhibition called Ta Plats. This is an installation view from Kulturhuset in Stockholm, where we put installations in the elevators. We're very fond of this kind of in-between spaces. And it's just a box with a button. And when you press the button, the kids take off. And this installation we have made an iPhone app for, especially for the things taking place today and this evening. And I will be at the concert hall, and I will help you to do a direct install on your iPhone this evening if you want to have the installation. It's before it's been distributed in the App Store, so it will be very few of you who actually have this work on your space. Okay. Not yet, sorry. But it's coming. It is. Okay. So I have a little bit more time. When we were working with this project dealing with public spaces, we got more and more interested in kind of the performative aspects and the meeting between the spectator and the image. And we started to work with another series of installations. And this is kind of a view of the setup for an installation we did at Hammarby Artport. And it's a real-time video installation, and it's a bit different from the screen-based works we have been doing before. So we basically built up this little room in the gallery. At number 1, you see we just had a small camera, which was hidden in the wall. And it shows, now I need to walk around. It shows in the room there's a chair, a lamp, and a computer screen. And we had pre-recorded material, you see here. So on the right side of the screen, there is an pre-recorded material. And then on the left-hand side of the screen, you see yourself with a 3-second delay. And you kind of get the image of that there are kind of this dollhouse perspective of 2 rooms next to each other, and that there is a person in the room next to you. And you see yourself with this kind of delay in the room. Here are some images. So you see yourself on this little screen. For the opening, we were expecting a lot of people, so we decided to do a bit of a more, a bit of a performance for the opening night. So We asked Simon Norton, who's an actor. We worked together on this installation, also with a choreographer called Anna Koch. We invited Simon to kind of come back and do a Simon versus Simon, so that he was acting in real time towards his pre-recorded self. And we set up a projection outside of the room so that there was a larger audience who could see it. And these are some images from Simon's performance. And here's the projection outside of the house. And I can show you just a little bit of a video, if I find it. And what happened during the evening was that people really started to act out scenes in the room. There was a woman who was laying down on the table, and she was taking the lamp and, directing it towards her mouth. And she asked another man who came in to, say, examine my teeth, you're the dentist. And people really started to play out little scenes. And we had turned the projector off because that was just supposed to be there for the performance, for the opening. And then the audience came and asked us, can you please put the projector on again? Because they wanted to perform for the audience outside and not only have the installation as kind of a private experience. So I'm not going to show all of the video because that's a really long documentation video. Was that clear? You understood how it worked? It's a bit hard to understand it when you don't have the physical installation. This is a still image from a work called Fathers and Sons, Virgin. And it's also kind of a container. It's a series of work with the same motif. And this is my husband and partner's grandfather and his uncle. We've been portraying all of our kind of male family members, fathers and sons. And they're standing outside of the Volvo fabric in Gothenburg, where they both used to work. And in all of the films, one of the characters is kind of leaning a bit precariously. And what happens when people, this is like a video loop, and it's a bit like waiting for Godot, nothing really happens. They stand there, they look up in the air, look at each other, nothing really happens. It's just a very long and slow loop. And what happens is that when people stand and watch this, after a while, they just slightly tilt their head, because you're wondering, how come he's leaning? And then we have a little camera that just, records that little movement, and that triggers the film to change. So then the entire image kind of turns a bit, it flips. The man who's leaning gets straightened up, and things become very weird because they've been kind of in perfect imbalance. And once they're both on the same level, they really start to notice each other, and they just leave, on one side of the screen each. And then there's the next couple coming on. So that's another kind of very intuitive interface that we have been working with, is just like recognizing these little movements in body that people are not really aware of. Here's a series of still images that kind of show what's happening. So here in the end, both of the characters are straightened up. I'll skip that. With this installation, we also worked in a small épicerie, like a mixed little winery shop and cafe on a corner in Brussels, where we were working for a month. And it was a really nice and very slow place. It was a man called Moncon who ran the place. He had it for 25 years, and his son was also working there. And although these were not family members, we really started very quickly to discuss whether we could do an installation with this father and son as well. And we asked them, and they said they would be happy. And they suggested that we should do an installation in the store. So we did that, and we installed the video work just behind the cashier, so that people, while they were waiting for paying or waiting for the sandwich, they could just watch Mongkong and his father. And it rested here for about 2 months. We were supposed to take it down after a month, but they just really enjoyed what this made and the conversations they started to have with their clients because of the work. And there were also a lot of curious kind of bypassers who didn't normally go into the store, who was really wondering what was happening in there. Okay, so the last point, which is a project we started about 2 years ago, which is not to the same extent dealing with the public spaces. It is in one way, but it's very specifically dealing with venerative places, venerative sites, venerative places, and the making and the remaking of saints. We got involved with a collective of craftspeople in south of Mexico, and we started to work on different kind of altar pieces, or what's it called? Yeah, like altar cabinets or retablos. And the first character we depicted was Saint Christopher, who's carrying baby Jesus over the waters. And that was installed in an old kind of cabinet. And this is going back a bit to the men that fall. It's So this is a documentation from. So when you get close to the screen, the saint appears and walks into the image. And what you see in the background, which looks like a bit of a Camelot in the sky, is the island of Rab in Croatia. And St. Christopher is the patron saint of Rab. And when you leave after a while, he will go away as well, until the next person appears. So this work has been shown in a couple of different churches. This is from a Catholic church in central Brussels. And for us, it was really important that it didn't become like a piece of art that hangs on the wall, which you just watch. You know, we really wanted this to be a work of art you can use for veneration as part of your practice. And people have really, you know, used it for lighting candles, or they put images here on the side of relatives and really used it as an altar in the church. Some different images. This is an image from Mexico, from the artisans we're working with. Here we handcrafted some other cabinets, and I'm going to run through this quickly because we're kind of going out of time. And here we did a shoot of the Virgin of Guadalupe, who's like the most important saint in Mexico and a lot of Latin American countries. And this is an ongoing project which has also spurred a larger project, which is starting now in November, which is called the Euro-Oaxacan Initiative for Transformative Cultures, which is a cultural collaboration between 5 European countries and 3 Mexican organizations, which actually all take the starting point in this kind of community workshop in a very small village in south of Mexico. This is what the final cabinet looked like. We're also working with kind of the green-powered dimensions of pilgrimage. Next summer, we're doing a bike trip through Europe, where we're both collecting material, but we're also doing installations and performances along the way. We're 8 different European artists working together. And we are kind of driving all of the media installations with solar power and with the energy we've worked up with the pedaling of the bikes. And we had a kickoff and a starting planning meeting for the project in Croatia a couple of weeks ago. And then together we built a small solar-powered chapel with a kinetic installation. And we worked with the stop-motion animation of a doll, which is also St. Christopher, but this time as a doll. And we used an old pinhole camera. And we made about 180 still images, which we then put together to a film of St. Christopher moving. And here's the doll. This is one of the negatives. Here's the chapel that we built. The solar panels are on the roof on the other side. You have a small door which kind of has a peeping hole. On the back side, we have the battery that's connected to the solar power and which goes to a screen. And when you look inside the peeping hole, you will see St. Christopher moving around inside. And the effect it has in daytime, because of the daylight outside and the darkness inside, is that he actually looks like a hologram. You know, it really looks like a 3D character moving in there, even though it's a flat screen. And yes, the chapel at night. Okay. And yes, our site is performingpictures.se. Oops. And I just wanted to leave this up if anyone was interested in some more information. There are a couple of papers that are written about the work. Okay, it doesn't want to be on. I'll leave it like this then. And you can also find links to this from our webpage if you're interested. Okay, thank you.